Red Riding Hood, presented by Mrs. Cottrell, Mrs. Persessi, Mrs. Durkaz, and Mrs. Kanya. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a village near the forest. Whenever she went out, the little girl wore a red riding cloak. So everyone in the village called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood asked her mother if she could go to visit her grandmother, as it had been a while since they'd seen each other.
That would be a great idea. Grandmother would appreciate that.
Her mother said. So they packed a nice basket for Little Red Riding Hood to take to her grandmother.
Now remember, go straight to grandmother's house. Do not dawdle along the way in the forest. It can be very dangerous.
Her mother said. When the basket was ready, the little girl put on her red cloak and kissed her mother goodbye.
Straight to grandmother's house, remember. I promise, Mommy,
said Little Red Riding Hood. But when Little Red Riding Hood noticed some lovely flowers in the woods, she forgot her promise to her mother. She picked a few. Watched the butterflies flit for a while. Listened to the frogs croaking. Ribbit! And then picked a few more. Little Red Riding Hood was enjoying the warm summer day so much that she didn't notice a dark shadow approaching out of the forest behind her.
What are you doing here, little girl?
The wolf asked in a voice as friendly as he could muster.
I'm going to my grandmother's house through the woods and by the brook.
Little Red Riding Hood replied. Then she realized how late she was and quickly excused herself, running down the path to her grandmother's house. The wolf, in the meantime, took a shortcut. The wolf, a little out of breath from running, arrived at Grandma's and knocked lightly at the door.
Come in, dear. I've been worried sick. I thought something happened to you in the forest.
Grandma said, thinking that the knock was her granddaughter. The wolf let himself in. Poor Granny did not have time to say another word before the wolf gobbled her up. The wolf let out a satisfied burp.
Excuse me.
And then he poked through Granny's wardrobe to find a nightgown that he liked. He added a frilly sleeping cap and, for good measure, dabbed some of Granny's perfume behind his pointy ears. A few minutes later, Red Riding Hood knocked on his door. The wolf jumped into bed and pulled the covers over his nose. Said the wolf.
It's me, Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh, how lovely. Do come in, dear.
Croaked the wolf. When Little Red Red Riding Hood entered the cottage, she could scarcely recognize her grandmother.
Grandmother? Is something the matter? Your voice, it sounds so odd.
She
Oh,
asked.
oh, it's just a little cold, dear.
Squeaked the wolf, adding a cough at the end to prove the point.
But grandmother, what big ears you have!
Said Little Red Riding Hood as she edged closer to the bed.
Oh, the better to hear you with, my dear.
Replied the wolf.
But grandmother, what big eyes you have!
Said Little Red Riding Hood.
The better to see you with, my dear.
Replied the wolf.
But grandmother, what big teeth you have!
The better to eat you with, my dear.
Roared the wolf. Roared the wolf. Little girl. Almost too late. Little Red Riding Hood realized that the person in the bed was not her grandmother, but a hungry wolf. She ran across the room and through the door, shouting, "Help! Wolf!" as loudly as she could.
Help! Wolf!
A woodsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry and ran towards the cottage as fast as he could. He grabbed the wolf and forced the wolf to spit out the grandmother, who was a bit frazzled by the experience, but still all in one piece.
Oh, Granny!
There, child. Oh, I bet you learned a fabulous lesson. Thank goodness to that wonderful woodsman that heard you screaming.
I'll never dawdle in the woods or talk to strangers again, Granny!
Oh, thank goodness, dear, you're okay.
The woodsman knocked out the wolf
Oh!
and carried him deep into the forest, where he could never bother any people ever again. The wolf, on the other hand, was never heard from again. Or was he?